I'm Doug Shoemaker. Doug Shoemaker, right?
12. I don't think that you know. My last few months, actually. Good morning.
All right. Take it a while here.
Okay. Good morning. Good morning to Governor Newsom and our distinguished guests. Welcome to Oakland's Chinatown. I'm Janelle Chan, the CEO of East Bay Asian Local Development Corporation, or Bsky. For more than 50 years, Bsky has been rooted in Oakland as a community anchor, building affordable homes, strengthening local businesses, and advancing healthy, vibrant neighborhoods. Today, we continue our community development work through transformative, transit-oriented development projects like Lake Merritt BART Station, North Berkeley BART, and VTA's Great Mall Station in Milpitas. These projects transform public land into homes, connections, and opportunity. And the project we are standing here today is such a powerful example. And we are so proud to gather here in the Clara E. Chan Residences, named after a pioneering Oakland suffragist and community leader who became the first Chinese-American woman to register to vote in the United States of America. And she did that 3 blocks away from this site at the Alameda County Courthouse. Her legacy reminds us that progress is made by people who organize, persist, and create a place for those too often left out. The Clara E. Chan Lee Residences is the first phase of a larger 2-block development and provides 97 affordable homes for elders, our popos, our gongongs, and more than $80 million in state resources help make this possible. $50 million through tax credits, tax-exempt bonds, and nearly $26 million through HCD programs. These programs include IIG, REAP 2.0, and $16.7 million in ASIC, the first major commitment of funding to this project. And this unlocked the site, helped us leverage a dozen additional funding sources. So this building is truly a result of years of community planning. The community rallied around this idea of reconnecting the site back into our neighborhood, reknitting Oakland's downtown, and filling it once again with homes, culture, and life. This space will once again be a place of belonging. Thank you to BART, Mayor Barbara Lee, and the Oakland HCD team, Senator Arreguín, Assemblymember Quirk Silva, Director Velasquez, and HCD, and Governor Newsom for continuing to remove the barriers so we can build more affordable housing and truly meet the needs and ambitions of our community. So this is what partnership really means, and we're working on a 4,000 square foot plaza next door to us, right above the BART tunnel, to tell Oakland's story of healing, perseverance, and celebration. And through these mosaic tiles, I ask everyone here, if you'd like, to be a part of that chapter. Help us lay a tile after this event. Meet Sharon afterwards. So now, it is my pleasure to introduce Doug Shoemaker, a longtime leader in affordable housing, and speaking today on behalf of the Turner Center for Housing Innovation.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Pleased to be here representing the Turner Center for Housing Innovation at the University of California at Berkeley. Established about a decade ago, the Turner Center has been a leading voice in identifying, developing, and advancing public and private sector solutions to the nation's most intractable housing solutions. So, on par with that, the Turner Center has done a significant research on the cost of building housing. Earlier this year, just in January, published a report on the cost of impact fees on affordable housing. This research found that affordable housing projects that are awarded low-income housing tax credits have paid over $300 million a year on average to pay for local impact fees for projects that are moving forward with affordable housing. This represents fees on average of $20,000 to $30,000 per unit for new construction. When applied to affordable housing, these fees increase per unit subsidies and redirect limited public resources away from building affordable housing, reducing the amount of housing that can ultimately be built with public dollars. So what this legislation does, among other things, is reduce public impact fees on state-funded affordable housing development to ensure that limited public housing resources are used to build affordable housing rather than recycled back into locally imposed fees. The legislation does that through two important things. First, it prohibits local government from charging housing projects where the local government is directly applying for or co-applying for state housing funding. And secondly, and very importantly, it incentivizes local governments to reduce or waive local impact fees by considering fee reductions or waivers in competitive state housing funding programs, allowing them to count as local housing contributions when considering local contributions or local investment in affordable housing. This proposal really does a lot of things, and it builds on, I think, what the legislature and the governor's offices have been doing intensely over the last few years, which is not only funding affordable housing, but addressing the cost issues that make it so problematic and has contributed to the cost and challenge of addressing affordable housing. It builds on the administration's one-stop shop housing finance proposal that I think we're also excited to have just seen launched in July. This is the governor's budget to streamline affordable housing funding and reduce unnecessary development costs. Together, these reforms are going to significantly reduce the cost of affordable housing development. Recently, the California Housing Partnership Corporation estimated that the one-stop shop alone is going to reduce or generate annual savings of $430 million a year, allowing existing state housing resources to support an estimated increase of 2,300 annual affordable homes per year. So in concert with this effort to address impact fees and the one-stop shop for affordable housing, I think you can see the intense effort that the governor's office and the legislature have come together not only to fund affordable housing, but to reduce the cost of affordable housing as we move forward with these very important efforts. So I want to thank the legislature for all its important work and the governor's office. And with that, I want to introduce one of the great champions of affordable housing in the state legislature. She's had a very long and illustrious career working in an area of the state that is hard to be an affordable housing champion, but she's done it with great success. And with that, I want to introduce Assemblymember Sharon Quirk-Silva.
Good morning, and thank you so much for having me here, and it's a privilege to be here. I want to give a shout out to all the construction workers. Construction workers, you're building our future. And also to all the housing heroes that surround me, behind me, and in front. Your work every day is what is housing Californians. I want to thank our governor. I remember distinctively when he came onto the assembly floor, the green carpet in 2018, and did a speech that was mostly focused on housing and homelessness, and from that day, I was one of his biggest fans because I distinctively remember how much a personal story in my family of losing a brother to homelessness and how much that meant to me. Thank you, Mr. Governor. I'm Assemblymember Sharon Quirk-Silva, representing the 67th District. 6-7, which includes the areas of North Orange County and Los Angeles. And homelessness is quite possibly the single defining challenge facing California. No single bill will solve it. No single budget will solve it. Progress, however, is real and happening every day. Over the past 3 years, more than 110,000 Californians have moved into permanent supportive housing through the Homeless Housing Assistance and Prevention Program, HHAP. Communities across our state are beginning to see those results. Here in Alameda County, where we gather today, overall homelessness has declined by 13%, In my own home of Orange County, overall homelessness is down 14%, including 27% reduction in unsheltered homelessness. And yet we've had to use a hammer there to make cities accountable, and I hope the state will continue to do that. Those numbers matter because every one of those people that are housed represents a person, a veteran with a place to call home, a parent putting a child to bed in safety, a young person with a future that looks a little brighter, and a neighbor given another chance. That is the purpose behind the housing investment that we have made in California. Serving as the Budget Chair Subcommittee number 5 has given me the opportunity to help shape California's investments in housing and homelessness over the last 4 years, and we have fought hard for those dollars. I see Miles smiling over there. One lesson has remained constant. Compassion without accountability will never earn the public's trust. Accountability without compassion will never solve the problem. This trailer bill reflects both. It strengthens transparency, improves oversight, encourages regional collaboration, and continues investing in strategies that are helping people move from homelessness into permanent housing. Lasting progress happens one person, one family, and one community at a time. Today's bill signing is not the end of this work, but rather a commitment to continue it. California will keep building housing. California will keep improving outcomes. And California will keep working until every person has the dignity, stability, and opportunity that began with a safe place to call home. Thank you.
Well, good morning. I'm State Senator Bsky.app. Welcome to Senate District 7 in my town, the city of Oakland. I want to acknowledge the presence of our mayor, the Honorable Barbara Lee. And it really takes partnerships at the local, county, and state level to help deliver the needed housing and homelessness investments to address the crisis of homelessness and housing affordability that affects every community in the state of California. I'm honored to serve as the chairman of the Senate Housing Committee, and I'm so excited to be here, the signing of AB 179, because this is a critical step to continue California's progress to address our housing crisis. And I acknowledge the tremendous leadership of our governor, Gavin Newsom, who I think is probably the most transformative governor in state's history around addressing the crisis of housing affordability. Billions of dollars of investments in building affordable housing and addressing street homelessness with accountability. And that's what this bill today will do. Address the issue of impact fees to make sure that we are maximizing the state's investment in funding to get homes built now. We know the cost of building is too high, and there's work that's being done right now in the legislature to look at building homes more quicker and make housing more affordable. And this builds on the work that's been done over the last decade to completely transform the way that we permit and approve housing in California to focus on getting homes built more quickly, but to address the issue of impact fees, to have a one-stop shop where people can apply for state housing dollars to be able to get these projects built faster, creating a new agency in the state of California that's focused specifically on housing and homelessness, and lastly, making sure that the state's critical investment in addressing street homelessness is paired with accountability. As a former mayor and somebody who's worked hard to address the issue of unsheltered homelessness, we need the state's continued investment in helping fund interim housing and shelter and supportive services and permanent supportive housing to get people off the streets. And because of this work, we've seen a 9% reduction in street homelessness in California just in the past year. And we know that the continued support of the state to help support counties and cities to get people off the street will be critical, but we need to make sure those dollars are being spent effectively and that we are actually getting people off the street and that the taxpayers' investment is resulting in real progress. One of the things I hear often from my constituents is the state spent a lot on homelessness, but I don't see an actual improvement. With this bill, AB 179, and the accountability measures that we're putting in statute for the state's investment in homeless dollars, we will see accountability, we will see results. So I want to thank Governor Newsom and my colleagues in the legislature for their tremendous leadership. And in addressing our state's affordable housing crisis. We've done a lot to streamline production. Now we're going to provide the money, and we're going to make it much more easier to build, and we're going to get the money out the door faster. And with that, we'll see more projects like this throughout Oakland and throughout the state of California. With that, I'd like to introduce the Director of the California Department of Housing and Community Development, Gustavo Velasquez. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you. Good morning. Buenos dias. I'm going to introduce the governor, quick remarks in English and also quick remarks in Spanish for our Spanish media. Let me start also by thanking our generous host, Ibalsi, Bart, Janelle, thank you for the incredible partnership in continue to develop the sorely needed affordable housing here in Oakland and throughout the East Bay. And thank you to the pro-housing city of Oakland, Mayor Lee, your housing team, and everybody associated with this project. Before I introduce the governor, I want you to look around this site and think of this. Clearly, the homes are not finished yet, but this is like 80% done. The foundation is strong. You have already mechanical, plumbing, electrical. Just the final touches are coming to put remaining walls, windows, and open doors and opportunities for nearly 100 seniors in the very near future. Today, what we are witnessing by the governor signing this law is kind of getting to completion. And I know the governor always reminds us we are not done. There's a lot still that we need to do, and he's right. But in the years he's been governor, he has partnered with champions, housing champions in the legislature like Assemblymember Silva and Senator Arreguin on so many things. So it's kind of the foundation, the framing is there. Historic investments in affordable housing never seen before he became governor. Historic state policy reforms to help localities build more and build faster, removing zoning and environmental barriers that have stood in the way for decades, holding localities accountable whenever they prevent or block housing creation. But there is one issue that has been largely unaddressed until today, and that is affordable housing finance reform. And look, I have to admit, this is pretty wonky, but just ask folks building projects like this how much time, how much money, how much bureaucratic hurdles they face in order to complete the financing stacking to get to this point. But that changes today. One more reform in the long and incredible legacy on housing in this administration. The creation once and for all of a one-stop integrated housing financing system so that in the very near future, and we're not waiting, we have Secretary Moss under her leadership working really hard with so many of the folks around here, we're not waiting, but in the near future, Ibalsi and mission developers like them will come to the state and obtain all the necessary financing at once. To what end? More housing, cheaper, and ensuring that we get to the affordability that we need. Unas palabras rápido en español. Estamos aquí reunidos para que el gobernador firme una ley muy importante que va a acelerar la creación de vivienda en los años por venir. Estamos en este proyecto que se dedicará para nuestros viejitos en Oakland que necesitan vivienda digna, vivienda segura, 100 unidades habitacionales para las personas de nuestra tercera edad. Y esta ley va a hacer que muchas más viviendas se crean en el futuro, aquí en Oakland y en todo el estado de California. So now with that, let me welcome someone who needs no introduction, our governor, Governor Gavin Newsom.
Thank you, Gustavo. Everybody, grateful for the opportunity to be here and check in and also check up on our progress and what we've been promoting and drive home a message fundamentally about accountability and delivering results with this budget trailer bill that I will sign in a moment. Janelle, thank you for your stewardship of this project. Thank you for your leadership. Thanks for bringing us here together. Thank you for your passion not only for this project, but more importantly for the community. And I appreciate you leading with our namesake, someone, I think it was 1911, when she became the first, Miss Lee became the first Chinese American to register to vote. And that's something we can't take for granted anymore. Every day there's a new headline that reminds us how precious that fundamental right is and how we have to continue to fight for it. So it seems so appropriate to be here today in her spirit at this precious moment. Sharon, you reminded me, Assemblywoman, a little bit of the moment we shared on, as you say, the green floor, the carpet, and the Assembly, a speech that I took the liberty to give to the legislature, a State of the State speech that was a single subject speech, which I assure you was not the case in any prior state of the state. But our state of mind was clearly fixed on the ongoing frustration, the exhaustion almost, of the issue of homelessness and housing in the state, and the connection, the affordability issue, before it was coined with the consciousness that it is today, the issue that defines more issues in more ways on more days, the cost of living, the issue of housing in this state, a state that, frankly, had been dumb as we wanted to be for decades and decades. We designed a system, a machine, over the course of the last half century to make it more difficult to build. It was intentionally designed. It wasn't by chance. It wasn't by happenstance. It was designed not to build. And that required us not just to think differently and argue for different results, but to rebuild the machine. And that's what we've committed to do over the course of the last number of years. And it's taken a number of years to build the political will, the political capital, to build the partnerships, the coalitions. They're stubborn coalitions here. A lot of folks didn't want to see change. Local governments did not, I assure you, at the time, want to see change. So much so that one of the first acts as governor was to sue one of those local cities. Check my status at City Hall down there in Huntington Beach. I'm not, there's not enough security can walk down those halls. We sued Huntington Beach. Been in litigation for years and years and years. They thought we'd go away. We didn't. 46 other states were put on notice. Cities were put on notice. We convened work groups north and south, and we began to work on holding folks accountable to the housing elements, to what we refer to in the vernacular of the state, the RHNA goals. And we decided it was time to have some stretch goals. We went from 1.2 million legally required housing units to be constructed in the state of California in what we refer to as the fifth cycle of the RHNA goals, and we more than doubled it to 2.5 million in the last cycle. We have seen over the course of the last few years progress not only made in terms of achieving those goals, but we've seen those goals extend to now over 3.5 million housing units where zoning has been committed to and progress has been advanced in order to blow past that legally binding 2031 goal of 2.5 million new housing starts. That's progress. We continue to make progress as it relates to the creation of a housing accountability unit, so it wasn't ad hoc. And the purpose of the housing accountability unit was to provide not just sticks but carrots, to provide support, technical assistance to help cities and counties all across the state of California achieve those audacious goals. We also significantly increased our tax credit program. In fact, we're advancing another $500 million in this trailer bill to do just that. It was in the modest single digits when we started. So accountability, support, promoting progress, but also promoting fundamental reforms, and working with the legislature and two remarkable leaders behind me, and Jesse, Senator, I'll get to you in a moment. We started to chip away. ADUs was a big deal. Working on single-family zoning, SB 9 and 10, big deals. 2011 was a big deal, but nothing more significant and consequential. After nibbling around the edges, 32 CEQA reform bills that I was proud to promote, proud to sign, the Holy Grail was out there, the thing that Jerry Brown once referred to as the Lord's work, that struggled to even get a committee hearing, let alone out of a committee or a floor vote. And we were able to achieve that together rather audaciously. I know it wasn't the way you always want it. Not in a budget, certainly, but we got it done in the budget. And we did the most consequential housing reforms on infill and secret reform in California's history last year. And what was remarkable about that, it's the old adage, once the mind is stretched, it never goes back to its original form. After all the friction, the frustration around that, you all came back, the legislature came back this year saying, what more can we do? Because the support you received from that was off the charts. People recognizing we need to do more and better. We need to produce visible, in the spirit of the senator's remark, visible results. They want to see more progress, more hard hats. They want to see more projects like this built, not more press conferences. And so that led to a series of reforms that we're announcing and landing here today. And let me quickly sum them up and sign this. As Gustavo rightfully said, the issue of financing and the labyrinth, the jungle gym, not even a ladder of sorts that you have to navigate to get financing. I think, you were talking about stitching together 8 different funding sources just from the state of California. And we applied 20 times, she continues to remind me, for those funds. Now we will be advancing, we have, technically went in effect a couple of days ago, as Gustavo reminded me. It's in effect, this codifies it and allows the funding to flow to the agency that's now been established that will allow us to establish this one-stop shop to reduce the friction, the time, the duplication, the repetition, the bureaucracy as it relates to accessing those funds. What does that mean? You reduce bureaucracy, you increase access and transparency. That drives down cost, drives down the time to a project. And we estimate with that reform and the reforms that I'll get to in a moment on impact fees, that we can reduce the cost per unit by $60,000 to $70,000. A governor has not been able to say that in years and years in this state. That's progress. And that impact fee is an important part. I saw this firsthand. I remember I was a mayor. As Jesse reminded us, he was as well. Once a mayor, always a mayor. And, I saw, dare I say, I may have even participated in a little bit of the abuse in that respect. And I use that word intentionally because it started to get a little abusive, the impact fees. Become candidly usurious. In some ways, it's outrageous. And for too long, we've been complicit. We've been passive. We've been indulgent. Impact fees tend to be solving a lot of other problems, but it's not solving this problem. It's not solving the issue that we claim is a crisis, but we're not acting as if it is because we're not resolving it. And so you've got some cities and counties, these impact fees are comical. They're outrageous. It makes it quite literally impossible to develop an affordable unit. It's BS. It's just a brand. I don't care if it's a nonprofit attached, it's BS. Because we're stacking so many fees to solve so many other problems. So we try to figure out what we can do at the state level. We don't run local planning commissions, though we want to run accountability and focus on that. And so we came up with a creative strategy. We took a few at-bats on this the last few years. We couldn't figure it out. This year we finally figured it out. And that was to attach, seems a little obvious in hindsight, but all the state-funded programs. If you want state funding, you want $1, you want $200, you want $200 million, no local impact fees then. Drive down the cost. And if you do that, then we're also going to allow those dollars that you didn't attach as a fee to benefit your scoring at the state level and provide that as an offset to your quote-unquote local match. And all of a sudden, when we started to knit this together, braid it together, folks started to come together, including the leaders behind me in the legislature that drove this reform. So this is the first time in decades, first time in my knowledge period, we've done anything on impact fees. So we're streamlining bureaucracy, reorganizing a construct around a simple one-stop application around financing, focusing on real accountability at the local level, driving accountability at the state level with fundamental land use reforms, and time to develop forms as it relates to CEQA. We're organizing in a construct more support, not just more punitive actions, and we're more resolved than ever to reach our goals. And here I'll conclude, and this is important, and this may actually make some sense, because talking about RENA goals and 8-year 6 cycles makes no sense to anybody. But this might. 682,000 units have been constructed since 2019. 59% more residential construction than when we started. 59%. We've reduced the time to entitlement and permitting from 160 days to 68 days. That's a 57% reduction. 59% increase in the number of residential construction units and a 57% decline in the time to get these projects at the state level entitled. I'm proud of that. And let me give you another proof point. In the last 30 years, we've been struggling on multifamily. In the last 5 years, we've produced more multifamily than we have in the last 30 years. So we're finally seeing progress. We're coming out the other side of this flywheel, and I'm proud of that. And I'll end on this, including, as Jesse said, on homelessness. And there's not been a governor that can claim this, but it's only because of the work that Barbara's been doing, Mayor Lee, and Jesse with his old hat, his former mayor in Berkeley, and mayors across the region in the Bay and across the state of California. But for the first time in almost 2 decades, California has seen a reduction in unsheltered homelessness. Visible reduction. Still a lot of progress, close to double digits, 9.5%. Few states, by the way, just 3 states can lay claim to any kind of reduction like that in the United States. You're seeing increases all across the country, double-digit increases in unsheltered homelessness. Finally, in California, we're seeing progress because we've driven the same mindset of accountability on encampments. As it relates to housing, we've also incorporated homeless accountability units. We're driving reforms, sticks and carrots, as it relates to Prop 1 and the $6.38 billion bond that we put out for mental health, the work we've done on encampment resolution grants, the work we've done on Home Key, which was referenced a moment ago in our tour. We're finally starting to see, again, another flywheel, and finally starting to see results and progress. Forgive the long-windedness, but it's what happens when you're termed out. Because we had a theory for the case, and we executed. And none of this, I assure you, was easy. I've said it many times, change has its enemies. Every single one of these things didn't happen before for a good reason. Politics did not line up with the policy. And so I just want to express my gratitude for all of you that helped create those conditions where we were able to move the needle and make real this progress. And with that, I have a pen. Why don't you guys come around? Why don't you all come around? Doug, even you. Doug is my old San Francisco housing director. He only wishes he could be director again with these reforms. There you go. And we'll do a quick photo. And get this done. You want?
Going fast, huh? Can we get one photo of her?
All right.
Okay. Genevieve, you know her budget.
Yeah. Oh, Genevieve.
Genevieve.
Hey, Genevieve. All right. We're all here, every one of us, to answer your questions.
Governor, you mentioned the state of the state addressed another aspect of housing in that. You noted Wall Street or corporations buying up single-family homes here in the state and wanting to do something about that. You were in alignment with the president on that as well. Any movement on that? There was a state bill by someone I believe that has been working on for years, but that died in committee.
Yeah.
Any updates on that front?
Yeah, there's been a lot of us are promoting that. The good news is, remarkably, the president may not be familiar because he didn't take the time to sign a bill, that what we were promoting, and by the way, take a look at that housing bill that was done federally, looks a lot like what we've been doing here in the state of California. Their reforms to NEPA, our reforms to CEQA, their focus on excess federal lands. We did that through an executive order the first year I got here. All those Caltrans sites and the development projects we put in those places, including on the corporate housing. And in so many ways, a model bill. And I applaud the bipartisan nature of that bill and the legislative leaders in Congress for advancing it. In so many ways, it neuters the need, not completely, but substantially, for the state of California to move forward. That said, there are a number of bills and discussions and amendments that are in play as we assess exactly, waiting to see if that actually got signed or the midnight deadline passed, to assess what it means and what it doesn't mean in relationship to California's unique conditions. So we'll assess that further, but substantial progress was legitimately made through the housing bill that was advanced federally.
Governor, even with the progress that you cited, California still ranks as one of the most expensive states for housing, especially with some of the bureaucratic red tape that gets in the way. What's your message to Californians who are struggling with this issue? How long might it be until we start to see?
Well, I hope they'll take a look at this press conference in the last 20, and they'll hear exactly what we're doing substantively on that topic. We're getting rid of the red tape, substantively. That's an old talking point now because we have proof points that suggest differently. 59% increase in housing construction, 57% decrease in the time to getting permits. That's real. That's the receipt on the substance. 3.5 million units now planned and in the pipeline, doubling of the legal mandate under the housing element and the RHNA goals. A housing accountability unit driving reforms and compelling localism. A focus now on YIMBYism, not NIMBYism. Nation-leading reforms to substantively address that issue. And yes, it is the issue, as I open up the press conference, that defines more things, as I suggested, in more ways, on more days, about the struggles of more Californians and Americans. Cost of housing. And it's not complicated. It's supply demand. It's Econ 101. We need to build more damn housing, and we need to lower the cost of construction.
Counties have been critical of the position in this bill that limit their ability to bring in revenue from these impact fees, and I guess I'm wondering, what's your response to that criticism that this makes it so that we're less likely to spearhead affordable housing projects?
Well, as a former county mayor, talking to the wrong guy. I know a thing or two about what I speak. They can choose not to. But don't try to seek more access to state funds. Or you can lower the cost of construction and deliver for your communities, for your counties. We did this, I think, very strategically, thoughtfully, and we knit it together with not just the punitive side, the stick, but real incentives that are laid out in this legislation. By the way, I didn't even include the $900 million on the HAP 7 that's coming out. I didn't even include some of the other resources that we put in this budget. So we're providing an abundance of support that has never existed for counties for housing construction. What we're asking for is accountability and transparency on usurious fees that, frankly, have been abused, not in every case, but in many counties all across the state. While I'm sensitive to that critique, I've been hearing it for years and years and years, and I feel like we've struck the right balance with this legislation. Anybody else? Yeah, well, I'll get to the, I'm going to go through what I do this time every other year, and that's assess the merits of all the bills. But certainly I'll speak to the one that we can all speak to with some intimate familiarities. We all worked on it together, which was the state housing bond, which absolutely the voters should support. That was vetted in the mindset that we brought to this legislative effort here today, which is a mindset of accountability and transparency about delivering results, about time to delivery, and about lowering costs. And so all of those were fed through that prism, and I'm very, very pleased with the work that was done to get that bill, or rather to get that bond on the ballot. As it relates to the other bills, I'll be putting out a little bit more in terms of my thinking on that over the course of the next few weeks. But I'm very, very proud of the work, including, by the way, the money that's in that housing bond for veterans, which is incredibly important. Anybody else?
How might this work in concert with the federal legislation? I know you said there's a lot of overlap.
It's great.
California's already doing.
Hey, rare to, a couple of good things are actually happening in Washington, D.C. It's hard for me to, forgive me, I want to say it again just because I want to hear it myself. A couple of good things have actually happened in Washington, D.C. And this was one. I don't want to overstate it, but it's a pretty good damn bill. And I actually stress tested it a number of times, and I wasn't joking when I said, looks a lot like California, which may have been one of the reasons Trump didn't sign it. But I thought there was a lot of good thinking and a lot of smart work that was done on it. Federal government, states have limited roles and responsibility when it comes to these things. Localism's determinative on all this. Housing and homelessness, it's a bottom-up construct. So it's really about getting rid of those regulatory thickets. It's really about creating flexibility and doing what you can to support localism. And I think what they did, what we've done, is going to feed very nicely into what the counties and cities will be doing all across this nation and subsequently all across the state of California. Well, thank you all very much for being out here. And again, Cahill, thank you, and Janelle and her team, congratulations on all the progress.